everybody. Welcome to Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard post NFL draft. We have the Giants taking Malik Nabers, LSU wide receiver, an explosive player, an electric player, a player that the New York Giants are happy to have, a number one wide receiver, something that Daniel Jones, if you remember, Daniel Jones was drafted after Odell Beckham Jr. was traded out of town. So Daniel Jones never got to play with Odell Beckham Jr. in his prime, never had that true game-changing, explosive wide receiver who's going to be a league leader in yards, touchdown catches. He's going to change games week in and week out, right? So Daniel Jones never had that chance. So he gets now in Malik Nabers, a player who is electric, is a game changer, can go down the field. He's good with the ball in his hands. Someone who is exciting, certainly, for the Giants offense. Intel, what's going on? Intel says 4 wins next year. Intel, it's frustrating, I know, and we'll get to that in a sec. Savage T says, do you think they could draft another wide receiver in the second? Hunter says, let's go, Pat. I love it. Glad we got Nabers. Intel says we are the worst team in the NFC East, and Intel is not a fan of Daniel Jones. So, Intel is bringing up a point that I think is a good thing to start off right off the bat. And that is that 6 teams took a quarterback in the top 12 picks of this draft, right? 6 teams who needed quarterbacks took a quarterback in the top 12. The Giants are the only team of the 7 teams who needed a quarterback and was looking at a quarterback in the top 12 who needed one and didn't take one. Now, listen, we've talked before the draft about how you don't just take any quarterback, right? You do the scouting of these quarterbacks to rank them and rate them and decide who in your mind is worth it for those picks and those trades up, and who ultimately is a player that, maybe you like, but at a different level of the NFL draft, right? So I think you and I both agree, you Giants fans and I think we all agree that you don't just take a QB to take them, right? You can't just rate them all high if you don't believe in them. That said, the Minnesota Vikings tried to trade up for Drake May just like the Giants did. And when they didn't get him, they still took J.J. McCarthy at 11. And Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings believe that they have the coaching in place now with Sam Darnold and J.J. McCarthy to start grooming guys, to start grooming them, to start working with J.J. McCarthy and hopefully turn him into their next franchise quarterback. The Giants instead pivoted directly to a weapon to give to Daniel Jones, Drew Lock, and Tommy DeVito. But is this really their quarterback room? Hunter Keller says, what did we offer for pick number 3? Hunter, I don't know the exact offer. That hasn't been reported yet, and I haven't gotten to that yet. But Ian Rappaport from NFL Network reported that the Giants and the Vikings both tried to trade up to 3 while the Patriots were on the clock. And the Giants were trying to trade up to 3 for Drake May, which, of course, ultimately I did not get the Giants pick correct in my prediction. But I told you Drake May was the guy. I told you they were trying to get him. I told you they would try to trade up to get him. And that's what happened, right? But ultimately, Nabers wasn't my pick. And the Giants ended up getting a wide receiver. But I hope you guys do recognize, as we had these live draft talks and these Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard, live chats where I'm taking questions from you guys and trying to bring to you what I have the latest. What almost happened, what the Giants tried to make happen, is what I was telling you. Quarterback, Drake May. Now, the one thing I didn't know, the one thing nobody knew, was exactly which quarterbacks they would be willing to take at 6 if Drake May wasn't there. So Tariq says, yo, Pat, receipts, Nabers, check. J.J. McCarthy, not top 10. Penix in the first round. Oh, Penix in the first round all day, Tariq. No doubt. Penix in the first round all day. So Tariq, on the other hand, says, thank you, Patriots didn't want Drake May. Next year, quarterbacks are not as good. Intel says, shake my head. A. West says, is Joe still on his way out? Well, I asked Joe Schoen point blank if he was still looking for a quarterback relatively high in this draft or if he's still comfortable with the current quarterback group he has, and he says, we're comfortable with what we have. I'm stunned, honestly. I can't. I am stunned that the Giants didn't come out of this night with a quarterback. Kenneth Brandt says if O-line does not improve a lot, Jones has no chance. I agree with that as well. In fact, going into the number 6 overall pick, depending on what happened there, someone was even telling me there was a chance they might go O-line depending on who came off the board there at receiver. Steven says Penix over McCarthy. It was obvious when they played head-to-head. Well, Steven, I agree, and I think there are evaluators who do agree. Here's the thing about McCarthy. When I was telling you guys on these chats, where my entertainer says JJ went 10, not too bright, but plenty proud. Daniel says move up for one of the corners left here. Joe Schoen told us he's done for the night. So the Giants are done for the evening. Intel says he wants a new GM. Oh, about Penix, Michael Penix Jr. over JJ McCarthy. So, Steven, in answer to that, I agree, and there were evaluators who did agree. But I still thought quarterback, whether it was Penix or JJ, was possibly going to be a Giants guy. I had somebody tell me earlier in this process that McCarthy probably wasn't going to be the Giants guy unless it was later in the draft, which obviously meant it wasn't going to be. Then I had someone right before the draft tonight tell me that if May was off the board, they didn't think it was going to be JJ either. I still was skeptical, though, that if he and Penix were both there at 6, that the Giants weren't going to take one of them. I just didn't believe it. I will tell you this. Even though they didn't get him, and even though they did pick Malik Nabers, and we want to talk about him too, I talked to somebody else from another team today who said that the Giants were in love with Drake May. And he was the guy. Ultimately, that 3-game win streak with Wink Martindale's defense forcing tons of turnovers and Tommy DeVito at quarterback ended up costing the Giants their quarterback of the future in this draft. So, let's see. Any quarterback worth a second-round grade, says Joel. Well, that's one thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. At this point, is it worth it for the Giants to take a mid-level starting or mid-level quarterback in this draft? And then is it worth it for them to take a mid-level quarterback in this draft and at that point have a developmental mid-rounder, but not a guy who you drafted top of the draft to be your future franchise QB? You know, is Jordan Travis from Florida State maybe a guy who is injured and maybe you're grooming for the future and isn't ready to play? Is that a guy you take, right? That's a good question. But I wonder what you guys think as fans. Do you want to see them spend a pick? Because remember, I know a lot of fans positively responded to my podcast with Trevor Sikkema from PFF, where we landed Nabers at number 6, and then Trevor disagreed with the idea of taking a quarterback later because he felt like don't just take one to take one later. Either take your guy up top or reinforce and build the roster. So I wonder what you guys think about that. Hunter brings up a good point. Why the hell did the Falcons pick Penix? So, Hunter, I'm glad you say this because I intended to actually, as I was walking into my car right now to talk to you guys, I saw Mike Garafolo reported that Mike McCartney, the Kirk Cousins agent, even though Kirk Cousins got paid by the Falcons, McCartney went on the record with NFL Network about how surprised and caught off guard and blindsided he and Cousins were by that pick, that it was never talked about, that they never saw it coming. You know, like, very interesting for him to react that way. Very interesting. Definitely interested to see what this means for Kirk Cousins and whether he doesn't want to play there now because he feels like they drafted someone to replace him and push him, and that's not what he was looking for, and he feels like they were dishonest with him and they were lied to. That's certainly the tone that struck. Penix Jr. is better than J.J. McCarthy. Yes, I definitely think he looked better when I watched him throw. Timothy says, will Malik Nabers led all rookies? Will he lead all rookies with 108 receptions, 1,400 receiving yards? Are Daboll and Schoen tied at the hip with Jones? At this point, West, they are they not? This super interesting result here with them paying Daniel Jones after that first year, and then even though they're laying the groundwork for a foundation after him, now going into this season looking like he might actually play for them. Ray says, don't do that at all with the quarterbacks after this. Fill holes for the next GM and coach. Well, easy for you to say. There's a GM and coach here trying to keep their jobs, but I hear what you're saying. Totally fine with no QB. Just wondering, long wins does that mean for this year? How many extra wins? Tariq says if Jordan didn't get hurt, he would have been in the running for top 3 quarterbacks in this draft. Emery Hunt loves Jordan Travis. Loves Jordan Travis for the Giants as well. Something to watch. Daniel says, I'd rather them load up with DBs and a tight end and take a flyer on Tavondre Sweat to fill Ashawn's role. They do have needs across the board. Like you said, D tackle, corner, an outside linebacker wouldn't hurt. Another safety wouldn't hurt. Offensive line, obviously. Offensive line, you still got to reinforce that. Richard Loro says, Schoen is a GM of value. Only 6 draft picks, many needs. No way they were going to draft up. Nabers, excellent pick, only 20 years old. Joel Lopez says, Pat, what's your take on Spencer Rattler? Doesn't profile as the type of quarterback the Giants would take with like height, weight, or not weight, but like height, build, size, arm, and all the abilities they're always looking for. But he is a competitor. I do think if he goes to the right fit, Rattler can find a good place. I think like developing with a team like the Rams would be something that would be interesting to see. Penix will be 28, end of Kirk deal. That should be a firing tonight. That's a team that ruled out Bill Belichick as their head coach, too. So funny. Have they ever been asked about that injury guarantee risk of playing Jones? Not yet, Ray. We will ask him about it. But did get to the bottom of exactly what it looks like is $23 million for 2025 if he gets hurt. We Suck says, do you believe in Jones to at least not be a shit show? Daniel has good play in him, obviously, but the Giants are a team that is not they are not built as a strong, competitive top of the NFC East or top of the NFC team. They still have a lot of needs, a lot of holes to fill. So is Daniel going to put them on his back if they don't fill all those holes? That's hard to see. How old will Rodgers be? Age don't apply to the quarterback position anymore. Guys, thanks for being here. This is fun. Please hit those likes too. That always helps when we do the likes. That's a great way to kind of like drive the traffic and tell people we're on here. Let's see. Thanks for doing that. Thanks for the thumbs up. All right, let's see. A West says, God, I would hate to see a coach like Daboll go down without getting his quarterback. Arch Manning, pipe dream. Let's go. What's your prediction for our second pick? D tackle. Yeah, you know what? I have to see what this round is coming to an end here. The first round. I have to look at exactly the specific players available before I give you a definitive idea on exactly the player, because it's not just don't want to run the battery out on the car here, but it's not just the positions you're looking at, it's also the specific players at those positions, right? If you guys see, I'm out here outside MetLife Stadium, outside the Giants facility. So here's the building. So we were in here working on the picks, going into the auditorium there with the Giants GM, Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll, and talked to him right after the pick. So just about to head home, but wanted to talk to you guys face-to-face first. Any chance we trade up higher into round 2, Hunter says. That's possible, Hunter, if they target a specific player there. I do think, but yeah, to answer your question on the position, I think corner, offensive line, D tackle, all positions that could make sense for the Giants here in round 2, depending on who they have ranked where. So as this first round comes to an end, I'm going to be looking pretty closely tonight and tomorrow morning at what the board looks like going into round 2. And that'll be more instructive, kind of digging into exactly who's available. I know Cooper Beebe, the guard from Kansas State, is a guy who is going to be an interesting one to watch for teams looking for interior help and reinforcement. The Eagles, if the Giants aren't going after a player like that, that's somebody to watch. We Suck says, what's your day 2 or 3 dream pick? I mean, a quarterback like Jordan Travis adds up to me. if it's a guy who like isn't ready to play, but they're definitely still getting a guy in the building who excites people. Though I have to do a little bit more work on how much work the Giants did on him, because that's not a name that crossed my desk really consistently in regards to the Giants. Hey, what's going on? As far as, somebody that they spent a ton of time with, but certainly they were scouting the position very closely, so it would have been somebody who they were, of course, paying attention to, but not somebody who was participating in all of those, they're doing this with me. Joel says, thanks for always getting our questions in, Pat. You got it, man. B-Dog says, maybe Copium, but with 6 quarterbacks going early next year, if a guy or two breaks out, really we have us, Raiders, Cowboys if they don't sign Dak, and maybe Seattle as QB needy teams. Yeah, but remember, as far as building the team for the future, heading in the right direction, maybe you hope that that's going to a place where you still land a quarterback who's going to be elite down the road. The problem with that is, with this current regime, there's no guarantee that they can turn this into something competent, competitive, sustainable, and exciting and electric and high scoring. This is a team that averaged 15.6 points a game last year and was 30th in the NFL in scoring. So adding Malik Nabers hopefully helps that. But who is your quarterback who's going to take your offense, finally bring it into this century, right? That's an unanswered question right now. Like, I stand here with MetLife Stadium behind me, and I wonder, when am I came on this beat in 2016, and Odell Beckham Jr. was lighting the world on fire, but even then it was like him, kind of carrying the torch, and the Giants weren't a high-scoring team, but they had an elite weapon, right? And so right now you look at the Giants offense, and they're a team that they're not an elite offense even with Malik Nabers. They are a team with a better weapon, but they're probably going to have a really, 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 really elite defense or strong defense that's going to keep these games low scoring, and then you try to pop some big plays here and there. But they did lose Saquon Barkley, right? He goes to Philadelphia. So you need to get a little bit, you need to load up. All right, let's see. Cooper DeJean and I think Kool-Aid still on the board right now. I think if Kool-Aid McKinstry's on the board, I know he's a guy who's been dealing with an injury, but he's supposed to be ready for camp. If McKinstry is, if Kool-Aid McKinstry is available in round 2 for the Giants at corner, that's somebody to consider. Roger says, hope Drew Lock can reach Nabers while DJ's wearing a neck brace. Oh, man, I hope Daniel Jones stays healthy, but definitely the Giants' actions haven't pointed to sticking with him for the long term until after not landing Drake May, they draft Malik Nabers. But how fascinating is this, guys? Like, really? Forget what you think of Daniel Jones or anything. How fascinating is it that the Giants tried tonight to replace Daniel Jones and didn't, so then they just got him a top receiver? Isn't that strange? Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that unusual? You just don't see it happen like this very often, right? A. West says, was all the JJ stuff smoke? Was that really just trying to bait Minnesota? No, to be honest, I don't think anyone had a true line on exactly where JJ fell on the Giants' board as far as where he was in the rankings. I did have somebody tell me like a month ago that J.J. McCarthy was more like a late first, second rounder for the Giants than a top 10 pick. But even hearing that, it wasn't coming from the general manager who's making the pick. It wasn't coming from the owner who's making the pick. And you hear those things and you think, okay, I'm hearing this, but is that a lie? Is that smoke? And also the need at quarterback to me really screamed out, right? And then I heard right before the draft tonight, somebody told me that if May wasn't on the board after getting picked at 3, that they didn't think that McCarthy would be the pick at 6. And even then, I was still, okay, that's 2 people I really trusted told me it wouldn't be him, but I was still skeptical. But it turned out to be accurate. It wasn't smoke. It was true. It's just people didn't get to the information I got to, but still was just wary of saying it was absolutely true because I wasn't sure I even believed it. They obviously didn't have JJ high on their boards, as Hunter. Certainly that person that told me that he was more like a late first, second for them, that was accurate. Let's see. JJ was the handoff king. Straight gas, never made sense, and I called it, says Tariq. Daniel wants to know any updates on Waller. Not yet. I'm viewing it as he's retired. I believe that's going to be the end result, but we don't have anything official. Gargoyle says, so who is going to throw to Nabers? Great question. I guess it's Daniel Jones at this point when he gets healthy, but it is him and Drew Lock. You know, Drew Lock's going to get basically all of the snaps in the spring while Daniel Jones is rehabbing, right? So Drew Lock came here believing he was going to have a chance to compete to play. So what's that going to look like? Is he going to have a chance to beat Daniel Jones out? Is this still evolving? Are the Giants still making moves at quarterback somehow? What's it going to be? Now I'm watching this Atlanta Falcons situation. Kirk Cousins and his agent not happy. Fascinating. Pat, they should have traded up for May, period, said Scott. That's what we need to get more to the bottom of, Scott, and what I need to get more to the bottom of is what was their best offer and what did the Patriots ultimately turn down? Hunter says, Tariq says Locke's going to be the quarterback. Hunter says best target Danny ever had was Golden Tate, end of his career. Scott says bottom 3 team in the league next season. I don't disagree. B-Dog says I don't disagree, but if May wasn't possible and they didn't love JJ, it's best we could have done. Tariq wants to know, where did all of those Drew Lock Giants fans go? Just had a friend, Giants fan friend, text me and says, can't believe they didn't go JJ, big mistake. Scott M says, please come back to covering the Rangers so I can copy and paste your lineups like in the past. Hey, Scott, am I correct that I started the fitting the whole lineup into one tweet? I'm pretty sure I was the first person to say, listen, I can do this to make sure I get it all into one tweet. Pretty sure that was me. And now it's like commonplace in the NFL. Mark says, Pat is so mad he was wrong. No, not at all. Not at all, Mark. Not at all. Not at all. It'll be exciting to watch an offensive player like Malik Nabers. And like I said earlier, Mark, I mean, I wasn't wrong in what the Giants were trying to do. They were trying to get Malik Nabers, or they were trying to get Drake May. Like a source texted me afterwards and said that the Giants were, quote, in love with Drake May. They just couldn't get him. So, yeah, I didn't get the pick right of what was ultimately going to happen. You're absolutely right. And there were people telling me the Patriots were probably going to stay and pick Drake. But I still just didn't believe the Giants weren't going to come out of this night without a QB. It all pointed to a QB. BTK says corner, safety, D-line, running back, linebacker. Running back as well, yep. 9 teams didn't like JJ. There you go, says Tariq. Well, no, that's not accurate, Tariq, because not all those teams were taking a quarterback, right? So that's not accurate. But listen, the headline of tonight, the 2 headlines of tonight is the Giants got an explosive receiver in Malik Nabers, and they tried to trade for Drake May and failed, and therefore, of the 7 teams in the top 12 that needed quarterbacks tonight, the Giants were the only one that didn't get one. Let's see. NYC says the Giants only lost Barkley. Okay. NYC says we couldn't score with Saquon. They haven't scored, right? You're right, they haven't scored. BTK wants Rattler or Milton. Milton's an interesting player to me. How quickly Giants fans have forgotten Drew Lock, says Tariq. Panthers traded up. All right. A. West says, love the process and pick. Biggest looming fear is that Jones gets his 4th regime killed. That would be his 3rd regime because it was Shermer, Judge, now Daboll. And also, Daboll was a disaster last year, so that's not all Daniel. And Shane's offensive line was a disaster. Glad if they didn't like JJ, they didn't reach Hunter. Yeah, no, I mean, I don't disagree with the process at all. Like, you don't just take a quarterback to take one if you don't love him, right? But I thought they liked McCarthy and Penix at different levels. And, listen, I told you May was the guy. He was the guy. They couldn't get him. That's really what ended up happening. A. West says, thanks for all the answers. It's really cool having a beat reporter live. You got it, West. I love doing this, man. I love doing this, and I love that you guys enjoy it and get something out of it. Let's see. Hunter says, got to get Malik on the pod. That'd be cool. Scott M, sometime this spring or summer, hopefully, West. We'll see. Or Hunter, we'll see. Scott says, I really miss you covering the Rangers, to be honest. And yes, you were first. Yeah, it was. That's right, baby. Giants are the best, says Eric. Tariq says he's being sarcastic about Locke. Giant problem, says Pat. Do you think they make a move tomorrow to move up for a corner in the second round? I do think corner's a position to watch. Don't know if they'll move up. They only have 5 picks left. We will see. It's possible if they have certain players they're targeting, they just want to go up and get a couple that they feel like can star for them and help them. That could be possible. They might though try to use those 6 picks because they do have a lot of holes to fill. Is Tannehill still a free agent? Does it make sense to bring him in for camp, says Daniel. A lot of Titans connections here. He is still a free agent. Niners drafted Ricky Pearsall, so Ayuk definitely gone, says Hunter. Or Debo gone, right? Because it sounded like reportedly today, sounded like both of those receivers were being bandied about by the Niners. All right, guys, I'm going to jump off and head home. Thank you so much for being here. Continue to follow my work in the Daily News and on YouTube tomorrow on Friday. Malik Nabers is going to be here at the Giants facility with us at 1 o'clock on Friday. So we're going to hear from Malik live and then bring you draft coverage here from East Rutherford tomorrow and through the weekend. Thanks again, Pat. Have a good one, says Hunter. Drive safe. N4 says this is a disaster for the Giants. Overall, I agree. Do you believe Mara needs to sell the Giants, says Gargoyle? Oh, that's a conversation for another day, Gargoyle. Thanks for the live. Thank you for being here, West. Scott, you have a great night too. N4 wants to know when it will end with Daniel Jones. We will see. The Giants tried to replace their starting quarterback tonight and instead got him a top receiver. What a strange evening. A great player they landed, Malik Nabers. But still, the hunt for the quarterback of the future, it appears, continues. Take care, guys. See you soon. Talking Ball Live with Pat Leonard. Subscribe here, Instagram, TikTok, PL on NFL. Also, P Leonard NYDN on X. New York Daily News website for my coverage. Stories on Malik Nabers and their attempts to trade up for a quarterback. Go check them out now. Thanks again.